Episode number 50 of Beyond the Blood, Steve. Do you feel accomplished? Do you feel like we've hit a milestone here?
Oh, this is definitely a milestone. It's like the anniversary special.
This is our 50th anniversary.
It reminds me, were you a big comic book reader growing up?
Yeah, a little bit, not big. Why?
I feel like you would always have, so yearly for certain comic book series, you'd have annual specials. It's a big thing. It would be like some type of culmination, of that
Mhm.
specific comic run. But this feels just like that because we're moving into a subgenre that both you and I are a big fan of.
Yeah, erotic thriller. This is the first erotic thriller that we've covered on Beyond the Blood, and some would argue this is inappropriate, not because of the content of the movie, but because we consider ourselves a horror commentary podcast. But I would argue that thriller is horror to an extent. Not that Basic Instinct is horror, but I would say that there's crossover between the two.
And this is I would have to say this is probably one of the more graphic erotic thrillers that we're most likely going to be covering. Anyways,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a couple big things with this episode, man. We're covering Basic Instinct from 1992, the commentary track, which we'll get into. This is our 50th episode, which is crazy. We didn't even know this was coming up. I was editing
no,
and I was like, "Oh, we have 50 is next." And I casually just texted you and was like, "Hey, this is our 50th episode." I had no idea.
it doesn't feel like it. But when you like really start going back and you start looking at the amount of episodes that we've covered together, or well, I should say films that we've covered together,
Mhm.
it's pretty impressive. I mean, we've knocked out quite a few different movies that we've done deep dives for over the
Yeah.
last year plus.
Yeah, and this is also the first video episode. So to everybody watching on YouTube and Spotify, hello. Welcome to the first video episode of Beyond the Blood.
This is pretty special. Not gonna lie.
It took us so long to do this, and I think I said so many times we were going to, and it just came down to time and like dedication to making it happen. And now we finally made it happen. So I'm stoked to be on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
Excited to have this as an option on Spotify. I'm speaking from back in time, so I'm hoping it all works. I'm sure the YouTube side will work just fine. The Spotify side, I'm hoping it works. Um, but we'll see. We try new things, and I figured 50 is a milestone. So from this point forward, the people can enjoy seeing our faces if they want to.
I like to think so.
Just a couple handsome gentlemen talking erotic thrillers on
Exactly.
the internet. So how do I get into this? We both are fans of the erotic thriller subgenre.
100%.
We spoke this year about covering more of them. And Basic Instinct, I think, is kind of the perfect launching point for us to do it because it's not only one of the most notorious, but I think as far as my longevity with the erotic thrillers, this is one of the
Mhm.
movies from my youth that I still hold on to with a great nostalgia and a great importance, even if it might be for some inappropriate reasons more than it is like movie enjoying. Um, this came out in 1992. I was a year old when this came out, so I discovered this on VHS many years later. What's your history with this one?
So this is a movie that I go back to. I consider this, let's just say it's an S tier erotic thriller for me.
Hmm.
And it's not only just because of how rewatchable it is, but it was one of the first few that I actually discovered and launched my love of these films between, I would say, this and Fatal Attraction. And
Yeah.
then from that point forward, after, getting both of those at the video store, that's when I actively sought out, trying to get my hands on as many as I could. In a lot of ways, very similar to like slashers,
Hmm.
of that same
Yeah.
time. So I feel like that there's like a little bit of crossover, I would say.
Yeah, it was this cover, the white
Oh yeah.
cover art for this. And then it was the cover for which I haven't seen it so long. It was the cover for 9.5 weeks. That was
Oh
the
yeah.
other cover that always I feels like, oh, this feels inappropriate for me to have.
Seductive.
And my I think it was my dad. It was either my dad had Basic Instinct or we had it for somebody in my household had it. And I remember I got to a point where I would just take VHS tapes and watch them. Like I can't tell you how old I was, but I was just watching movies. And I remember taking it, and it's the opening scene that was like, huh, what is happening here? Like, what? This is like unlocking a whole new world for me. And that's why this movie is nostalgic because of that opening scene of Basic Instinct.
Well, especially because I mean, for a lot of these, and you obviously you get some there's obviously the mystery that's with a lot of these. Like there's usually, high stakes murder in some aspects, but especially for this one, I mean, it goes like from 0 to 10 really quickly with how fast it escalates.
It does. And obviously, getting older and getting into film, I think my first big jump with Paul Verhoeven outside of this was Stormship Troopers.
Mhm.
That was really like I think the first Verhoeven movie that I was old enough to understand and comprehend. And then I got into RoboCop, and eventually it became Showgirls for me. Showgirls was like the
Yeah.
holy shit, like my life is changing. And then when I went back to Basic Instinct, it was actually still on TV. I think it was TNT or TBS, so it was edited.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, it was edited, and it was still like this is that movie. Do you remember the era in our lives, which so many people aren't going to know because we're old now, but do you remember the moment
Damn,
when you would
man.
dude, listen, when you would fall asleep at like 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock, right? And you would wake up and it would be like 11:30 midnight. And you just remember like a scene playing that like you should not be watching, but it came on and you'd be like, what is going on? But you're in a stupor because you're half asleep and not really sure.
Oh, some of the even the commercials that you would get on like late night cable. I mean, it's
Yeah.
you definitely don't get that. I mean, I feel bad for anyone who's missing out on that experience, but to wake up to some, what was it, like Girls Gone Wild or
Yeah.
whatever it was at the time, you'd have
Yeah.
like advertisements for that. But um yeah, I mean, this one, it kind of going back to what you were talking about earlier, that cover art on the
Yeah.
VHS is
Mhm.
just it's so iconic. I have a one sheet of this hung up in my room. It's a movie that I feel like has a very very profound impact on just the subgenre in general. So it's
Mhm.
this film's incredible, and it looks incredible on 4K. Getting to enjoy the Lionsgate 4K that they put out recently.
It feels like this is a bygone era. This era of movies that were made for adults. Like, yes, obviously, content wise, it was made for adults, but it's such a like we don't have actors like this anymore. And I know
No,
everybody says things like this, but we don't have a Michael Douglas. We don't have. I know people say Sydney Sweeney. Sydney Sweeney is not Sharon Stone.
we were just talking about that.
There's a very clear difference between straight performance and the ability to capture a character and become a character. And this is a movie where now as adults watching it, I just become so engrossed in Michael Douglas's character and Sharon Stone's character, all of the side characters. This movie has just a pulse running through it the entire
Hmm.
time that never stops, and it never loses the interest. It is incredibly interesting all the way through, even though we have characters that we have, suspect and a cop who become lovers, and we don't understand what the intention is, and there's all of this like troubled past with everybody, and everybody's getting molded into each other, and it keeps this momentum all the way through to the end. And then even when the movie is over, you're still left questioning the morality of every single character
It's the
because
best part.
and it still is interesting to me now seeing this movie 10, 11, 12 times that I have. It still is just like there's a magnetism to this movie that's in the direction, it's in the performances, it's in the writing. It's absolutely just the tension is palpable. And I think in the conversation of 90s, as much as I love Pulp Fiction and what Tarantino was doing in the 90s, I think Basic Instinct it sits atop the lineup, man. It's just lightning in a bottle. Mhm.
Well, and I would argue that a lot of the erotic thrillers that came out after this time, I felt like they tried to basically replicate the success of this film and
Mhm.
didn't come quite close. Or I mean, you go back and you look at that period throughout the 80s and 90s, and I feel like that there's only like a handful of films I would maybe consider putting them in the same tier, and that's a few and far between. But a lot of them, I
Yeah.
mean, when I go back and watch some of them, I mean, they're like more like sleazy thrillers. This is in a like a category all on its own, you know.
Well, what would you say? I mean, late 70s, you have, I believe, the third remake of The Postman Always Rings Twice with Jack Nicholson and, um, God, I always forget her name from American Horror Story and King Kong 76.
Oh,
Um, always blanking on her name. I think
Jessica
probably
Lange.
Jessica Lange. Yeah,
Yep.
I think the most comparable before Basic Instinct would be Body Heat in '81. William
I
Hurt
just watched that.
and Kathleen Turner. You know, flash forward 11 years later. You got to remember, like horror took over everything
A
in the
lot of the
'80s. Horror and
80s.
action took over, right? So '92 Basic Instinct comes along. This is really, I think, and I would have to like really deep dive to be sure, but I remember just looking at it, this kind of being the launching point for that run of like the 93 to 99 of erotic thrillers, but most of them, even going into the early 2000s, never had the same energy, right? Like
No, not at all.
they were erotic, and you got to see a lot of actors and actresses in ways you've never seen them before. What else would there be kind of in that era? I remember Original Sin with Angelina Jolie.
Unfaithful.
Yeah, that's is that Diane
Hold on.
God, I'm just forgetting all the names tonight.
It's okay. Diane Lane and Richard
Yeah,
Gere.
Diane Lane. Yep, yeah, Richard Gere. Yeah, Diane Lane, Unfaithful. I remember Fatal Attraction, 9.5 weeks, obviously. I can't remember what comes before or after, but that run
Body of
of film,
Evidence is another
Body
one.
of Evidence. Well, Paul Verhoeven went on to, or not Paul Verhoeven, I'm sorry. Sharon Stone went on to do Sliver
Yeah, yeah.
years
I
later.
wouldn't say it's quite on the same level, but I do like that movie a lot.
And then you have kind of like Wild Things and Poison Ivy comes in the late 90s, early 2000s. And there is a slew of independent straight to video erotic thrillers out there
We
that
had The
are, if
Crush, The Babysitter that came out
dude, just
around that time.
go on Tubi and type in erotic thrillers,
Oh,
and you're gonna be like, where the fuck am I? There's so many, dude. It's great. Like, you also have Jade from William
Jay,
Friedkin.
The Last
You have
Seduction.
Last Seduction. Yeah, yeah, you have a lot, and as much as I love some of those movies, none of them have the the angle that Basic Instinct does.
I think the only films that I feel like come close to it, and I know it was a little bit before this time, but the ones that always stand out to me are Dress to Kill, Body Double, you have Fatal Attraction, and I feel like this one is definitely up there.
I do like. I love the sort of callback to Basic Instinct in David Fincher's Gone Girl because we have
That's
obviously the scene that pretty much is a direct reference to Basic Instinct.
Would you consider that, at least I do, I consider that probably one of the last erotic thrillers that we get?
Yes, I would.
I,
It that's
of that caliber, I should say. I feel like that there's
Yeah,
been some
thriller
not
with
the time.
some really heavy-handed eroticism. Like 'cause the whole movie isn't based around it, but there is a good chunk of the movie where it really leans into it. And when you're calling back directly to Basic Instinct, essentially, then I think you have the right to deem yourself in the genre. You know?
That movie is so good.
Yeah.
Where's the 4K for that?
I don't know, man. I have an edition with the book. It's got the book in in the thing there. Fincher had that weird run of those like weird like My Social Network is like a sleeve almost. It's not like a typical case.
Like a digipack?
Yeah, that would be it.
Okay.
Digipack. Yeah, yeah, um, yeah. So this is just a movie that's been with me for a long time, and I was very excited to talk about this for the podcast. And we decided to dive into the audio commentary with the director Paul Verhoeven and cinematographer Jan de Bont. This was recorded in 2001 for the Uncut DVD release of the film. So this commentary track is 25 years old, which is wild.
Even though it's 25 years old, there was a plethora of very insightful information we got out of this commentary. I felt like this was another one that just was information overload, if I can talk, in the best way possible. Sorry, I'm
Yep.
getting too excited about Basic
Yeah,
Instinct.
getting wound up, man. I'm ready to go, dude. Basic
Think about
Instinct,
Sharon
let's go.
Stone and the interrogation scene, and here we are.
Yeah, yeah. This was a very good commentary track. Now, I have a ton of notes. I'm sure we're gonna have a lot to talk about as we go on. There is, I will say, obviously, if you've never listened to an audio commentary track, and if you decide you're going to, well, if you're gonna listen to this, spoilers, because we're gonna get into everything. But I don't know why you're listening to this if you haven't seen the movie anyway. Um, this is an audio commentary track that's packed with information. There's also a lot of interesting tidbits about character motivations and movements and reasons that don't lend to this conversation because those are much more kind of in the moment and they're pointing out little details about
Hmm.
character manipulations or little things like that. So I did not take a bunch of notes about that stuff because that works best during your watch with the
For
track.
sure. For
So
sure.
even if you're somebody who's seen the movie a couple times, outside of the information that we're going to chat about on here, it's also just great hearing Paul Verhoeven go on and on and on because every single scene he's doing it with pointing out little details in the performance, pointing out kind of the ebbs and flows of the character manipulations and stuff. It's very interesting. So
It's a
you
very
need to
fast
check
moving
out this track.
commentary too. I felt like it's like rapid fire with how much information you're getting, and
Mhm.
just like certain viewpoints on certain scenes. I thought it was incredible.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You ready to get into it?
Oh yeah, I'm
All
here
right,
for it.
man. How do you feel about Sharon Stone nearly fainting during the opening scene because of the amount of blood used?
Don't worry, I'll be there to catch her.
Dude,
Um,
this opening scene is the best of the best, bro. I have to talk about it.
so there's a couple moments in here that I feel like when I think of this movie, these scenes come to mind, and this is definitely one of them. The way that it's filmed with the use of mirrors,
Mhm,
and it's unclear, like, really. I mean, we don't know the context, right? it's
mhm.
it's a very intimate scene that, under normal circumstances, this is never something we have to worry about, but it escalates very quickly, kind of going back to what I was mentioning earlier. And it is goes from being seductive, erotic, and just ramps up with the violence very quickly.
There was a period of my life with this movie where I never made it past this opening scene because my interest was strictly on this obviously this opening scene, and then it becomes a little too talky for me as a kid. I was like, "Oh, yeah, this is boring now." But there's a couple good notes that Paul Verhoeven goes over, and he talks about a lot very fast. And I tried my best to like pick out what I thought was most interesting for conversation. But one thing that I thought was interesting is that he talks about how all of the erotic scenes in the film were shot without stand-ins.
Hmm.
So typically in a movie, anytime you don't see their face, usually in these sex scenes, it is a stand-in, like or a body double, as you'll hear it being referenced. So all of these scenes, these are the actors. This is Sharon Tate. This is
Stone.
I forget his name to
Sharon
play
Stone.
or Sharon Tate. Oh my God, what am
Oh
I?
no,
Sheesh,
too soon.
50, 50 episodes. I'm in the Manson. Oh my God.
I told you, man. You
Uh,
start talking about Sharon Stone, it gets you messed up.
sheesh, brother. Yeah, so this is Sharon Stone. This is her and everything. This is Michael Douglas in every single scene. And this introduction of our character, Catherine Tremell, played by Sharon Stone, using the ice pick to kill Johnny Boz is still, in my opinion, the best single sequence in erotic thriller history.
Oh, easily.
Oh, okay. I was hoping you were going to agree, but I was also hoping you would disagree to give me a counter argument.
It
But I'll accept it.
I would say, yeah. I feel like that there's a couple others that come to mind, but this is definitely at the top of the list because it's such an intimate way to kill somebody. Like I think that this is, I don't know how to explain it. Like it's just it- cold. I it's cold open, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
know, the way that and it's like just with such excessive force, the way that it goes down, um, just rage. There's like this rage behind like how this blonde woman is attacking this victim in just such a
Mhm.
manner that's like, I mean, I feel like you only see this in slashers.
Yeah, it's very angry, and there's so many details that are set up in the opening scene, such as her tying his hands to the back of the bed with the white scarf that gets brought up numerous times. The ice pick becomes kind of a consistent
It's like the
piece of
trademark weapon.
information. Yep, it's a trademark weapon. But the savagery that which she kills him, this isn't just like a quick and done, slit throat, right? And he bleeds out and he's dead. This man is stabbed. And I believe the number might be wrong. I think 37 times he is stabbed. And when she first initially goes for the stab, she goes right for the face. She goes for the chest and the face.
Hmm.
And the effects here are done by Rob Bottin, obviously of The Thing fame, John Carpenter The Thing. There's a moment where the ice pick goes through his face and his nose, and it's so fast and harsh and gruesome. There's a tenacity to it that still bothers me to this day. No matter how much I watch this scene, every single time the attack starts, it's like it gets an audible reaction out of me
And it
every time.
happens so quickly. Like, I mean, you don't you really have to watch this, I think, more than once to really understand the magnitude of just how violent
Hmm.
this killer is. And again, you know, for first time watching this, I mean, you're left wondering like like why exactly, you know, why be so vicious with this kill, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, I want to know how she got the ice pick into bed. At what point did she slide? I'm just,
Well, let me ask you though, are you like 100% sure in this opening scene that it's Catherine?
um, I mean, I think it's pretty. After the first watch, no, I wasn't 100% sure. You watch it twice, you pick up on the game that's happening here. And for sake of conversation, I thought about should we hide it and kind of keep it the intrigue. But if you're watching this and you've watched the movie, so you know that Catherine Tremell was the killer the whole time. So I just wanted to instantly go with it. I mean, it's pretty like they try a few tricks to kind of lead you
Throw you
on, but I
off.
think yeah, and it's more so like you're kind of you feel like Michael Douglas, where you're kind of questioning who it could be, and kind of having this like between his therapist and between Catherine Tremell, but it's pretty clear, I think, that it's Catherine Tremell from the jump, right? Am I wrong?
I mean, and I'm sure we'll talk about it as it go, you know, as we go through this commentary. But I think the reason why I come back to a film like this is because it, the chessboard is constantly moving, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A lot of open ended ways you can interpret some of this,
Yeah.
and we know Catherine is very manipulative, you know, throughout the entire film. So there's times where I wonder. I mean, I love to toy with the idea of it if that's actually
Mm-hmm.
her, but as we'll talk, you know, as we get further into the movie, I mean, she definitely has um, people underneath her thumb.
Yeah. Yeah, she does. And it's right after this movie that we're introduced to our other main character, um, Detective Nick Curran, played by Michael Douglas, the incredible Michael Douglas, who I just watched in David Fincher's The Game a couple weeks ago.
Do you feel like he's an underrated actor?
Dude, I think Michael Douglas is top tier.
I
I
don't feel
mean,
like,
and
like nobody talks about him, and
the
this guy's
fe-
like tremendous.
but who in reality though, like we live in the space of movies and physical media. Who talks about Sharon Stone anymore?
Me.
Unless you're us. That's what I'm saying. Unless you're us in the general public. I mean, these people are getting older. They are technically less relevant, as much as we hate to say that. But in a conversation in the 90s, you have to talk about them. I mean, Michael Douglas is the shit, dude. Wall Street, dude, The Game. That was my first time watching David Fincher's The Game,
Oh, it's so
and
good.
I love that movie, man. I love that movie, dude. This guy is best of the best, in my opinion.
Did you ever see Disclosure?
Yeah, Disclosure. Wasn't he did Michael Douglas did a couple erotic thrillers, right? This wasn't his
Yes.
only.
Fatal Attraction. He did
Yeah,
Basic
Yep,
Instinct.
Fatal Attraction.
Let's see. I feel like that those are like the main ones. I'm
Yeah,
glad
there's
you saw the
actually
game. The game's
I'm
good.
gonna on Instagram, I'm gonna post if you're listening to this, I'm gonna post a really interesting like behind the scenes bit that's not a bonus feature on any disc where it's Michael Douglas talking about kind of this venture into movies about sex that he got into,
Mm.
and how comfortable he got with nudity and wanting to do all that. It's interesting, but off the point. Um, I do love after the introduction of Michael Douglas, and we're introduced to the almost all of our police figures that are arriving here at the mansion to investigate this murder. There's an interesting point here that uh, Paul Verhoeven points out, which is anytime. Well, there's a couple things actually. Anytime we're with the cops, the camera's always floating around.
Hmm.
And that's obviously Jan de Bont, incredible cinematographer, director of Twister. I just have to say that
A
one
personal
of my
favorite.
personal favorite of mine. But there's something that he points out. Tell me if you notice this, especially in this sequence. The cops are always forcing the camera to move. They're always leading the direction of the frame. So anytime the camera is panning, there is somebody moving in that direction. And instead of them saying center frame and moving, they kind of push against the edge of the frame, and that kind of motivates the camera movement.
I think it leads to the uneasiness of us not really fully understanding like where things are going, what's going on. I mean, I think that the police more so with Detective Coran, you know, eh, basically the audience, right? So
Hmm.
we're trying to piece everything together in the same way that the police are, and I think it's a very deliberate choice with the way that they set up certain shots or how it's following certain scenes, but um, I think it's a very effective way to keep us engaged.
Well, to counter this, to kind of give a contrast to listeners, Robert Eggers does the opposite in Nosferatu. And he was very vocal about how purposely the camera would move first before the characters. So there's a sequence when Nick Holt is coming up to the castle, and the camera pans to the right to show the walkway leading up to the castle.
Hmm.
And then Nick Holt walks into frame and begins going. And this is a motif that goes through the entire movie because it's supposed to signal like fate. They're destined to go in this direction. So as viewers, we're watching them being guided there. It's almost like that's where they're being pushed to go. Whereas in this case, this sequence is very hectic because you have detectives, you have police, you have all the crime scene chaos. There's all this great insight about the mayor and Johnny Boz's investments into political stuff. So there's a lot of chaos, and you feel kind of like pulled along.
Hmm.
And that's why I just love this. And I love there being like a set visual style that changes for this.
Well, and this is a film that I don't know about you, but it keeps you engaged in this movie from start to finish. Like the pacing on this film is incredible, and you
Mhm,
never feel the runtime. That's what I love about this movie.
mhm.
I'm invested the entire time because there's some films, and I'm sure you've been through this before. You kind of find yourself kind of like not as actively like committed to the movie as I feel like we want to be, but this is one from start to finish. It's like I'm locked in
Yeah.
because there's so many moving parts to what's going on, the motivations, the plot, the whole deal.
Well, I think this is the power of visual storytelling because Jan de Bont says that it keeps an energy, that the camera is consistently moving because he mentions how specifically with the police you have this very kinetic camera. It's on it's kind of like floating around, it's always moving, there's always movement, as is like there's always progress or always kind of intrigue in an investigation. And then when we leave the chaos of a lot of the police stuff, the rest of the movie, they purposely went for a very Hitchcockian style, very shooting high up and
Hmm.
down, playing with low angles, like
I
keeping
mean,
the
we get that in the
camera a little
opening scene
still.
too.
Yeah. Yep. So there is a visual language to this movie that as soon as I was listening to the commentary track, I was like, oh, this makes total sense. But it keeps the fact that we are constantly going, especially in the first half of the movie, between the kind of police investigation, the chaos of that, and the unfolding of information as we meet, or as Nick meets Catherine Tremell and all of that stuff. There is two different visual styles happening that contrast so well, and it's really interesting, man. I love these kinds of notes from directors.
Let me ask you. So synonymous with both roles for Detective Karan and Catherine, respectively played by Michael Douglas and Sharon Stone. Could you see anyone else in these roles? Because when I was doing a deep dive into the production on this film, it sounded like that there was a number of different actors and actresses that had been offered the role. And Michael Douglas, my understanding was he was attached very early on to the
Hmm.
script or to the project. Finding the lead actress for Catherine was quite the lengthy process. A number of actresses turned it down. I think Demi
Hmm.
Moore was one possible candidate. Could you
Hmm.
see anyone else playing either of these roles? Because I think with the final product, I don't know if I could.
I don't know if anybody has the it. I said something in our group chat a couple weeks ago. And I believe it was along the lines of like growing up growing up with Basic Instinct is becoming more attracted to Sharon Stone with her clothes on than with them off in this movie because her character is so fucking intriguing.
She's magnetic.
Like every moment with her is crazy, dude. And she has I said this earlier and I'm going to repeat myself. There's like a magnetism, like I'm forced to pay attention to her.
Well, she
Everything
controls
that
the room.
it's absolute control. And Michael Douglas does as well, but we're talking two different ballparks here, two different sports. And especially when you understand what her play is here and the games that she's playing, she is just on 100% this entire movie, man. Like it's unreal.
She is probably in my mind like one of my I would argue like one of my favorite villains of all
Yeah,
time.
this is in my top 5 performances of all time. I mean,
It's it's like what you said. I mean, the way that she is able to command the room, um, especially, and we'll talk about it here shortly, but during the interrogation scene, there's something about that like when I think erotic thrillers, that's what I think about
mhm,
because the stylistic choices, the lighting, the contrast between the police and her, and just how she is spinning this web for
mhm.
them to be able to like kind of paint the picture. It's incredible. Like there's nothing like
Yeah.
it.
You also have an incredibly smart and successful lead antagonist who is a female.
Hmm.
Like it just you know that she is smarter, she's more successful, and she's one step ahead of every male character in this movie, to the point where she is able to expertly weave this web that's almost bulletproof. Like you're
Mhm.
talking, these are like long, experienced detectives that are trying to figure this out. And I mean, even the play of, with the book, why, wouldn't that be suspicious if I was to copy the death that I wrote in my own book? Like she's incredibly smart, man, and it's really just an unbelievable performance from Sharon Stone.
Well, it's almost, like, the way that she almost taunts us as the audience, it's almost kinda putting it out there, like, is this gonna be the outcome?
Hmm.
I mean, obviously, we don't know early on, we don't know where, what she has planned or intended for her book.
Hmm.
We know that this entire premise is kind of tied into that in some
Yeah.
capacity, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's crazy, man.
Yeah, yeah. Well, before we get into the book, one thing that I loved here is, and I think you can typically describe Paul Verhoeven as a director of excess, right? His movies are incredibly excessive in every way. Love him for that. There's a moment here when, when Nick and his partner Gus are pulling up to one of the homes that is owned by Catherine Tremell, and it's this gorgeous like high crane shot. And Paul Verhoeven talks about how he regrets not putting Catherine Tremell on the roof,
Oh yeah,
and
yep.
having her suntanning naked just in the shot. Just like it's like it's not needed. It's this excessive. Yeah.
I can definitely see, like, as a director, it's like, where do you draw the line? I mean, for much of this movie, I mean, we do see Sharon Stone in that light.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if it would have been necessary, but listen,
Yeah.
these are his words, not mine. Like, if he wanted to throw that in there, I'm not going to complain.
No better entrance for her character than how she is introduced at the dock in a little bit. But I did want to talk about this brief interaction. She's not home, but her friend Roxy is home, and this
Mm.
is the moment when Jan and Paul begin to talk about some of that Hitchcock influence. And some of the, like, they also kind of bring in Orson Welles because you have these very low shots where we see a ceiling, which is what Orson Welles essentially introduced into cinema in Citizen Kane. And just talking about how Roxy coming down the stairs, the way that she does, the way that it's shot, it's all very Hitchcockian, and it just sort of kicks off that visual language of the movie that we're going to see again and again and again.
Well,
So I thought all that was
even though
interesting.
even with her home, I mean, it's almost, in a lot of ways, I think it's a reflection of Catherine, where it's beautiful, but it's also very intimidating in a way. Just with how sprawling it is. You're, on the coastline of where it's located.
Hmm.
Um, you just us as the audience, it's like we don't know. I feel like we're getting seduced as we're walking into the
Yeah.
house.
It's also like this isn't just, like moderate success. This is she's living top tier in the city.
Hmm.
This is one of her two homes. And this house is gorgeous. And we see it a couple
Oh, it definitely
times
is.
throughout the movie. This is like a phenomenal piece of property. And the production design, the location scouting for this movie is A1 because this is a practical location. A lot of the movie is in practical locations outside of, I think, mostly the police station, like the interiors. But it's just a gorgeous house, and it just begins to show what kind of person we're dealing with, this level of success that she
The
has.
the home is located near Carmel by the Sea, so it's just
Hmm.
south of San Francisco. But some of those, just those shots of, you see, like, the ocean, the waves crashing, even during the drives, like, a lot of that is just, I don't know, it's the whole movie is very seducing. Like, it just kind of keeps you, like, pulled in. You're trying to figure out what's going on, and it just
Hmm.
looks stunning, a lot like Catherine herself.
Yeah, yeah, and even more so, like we're introduced kind of in this run of scenes. We're introduced to Gianna Triplehorn's character, Dr. Beth Gardner, who Michael Doctor or Doctor Detective. There's a lot of titles here with characters that Nick has to see, and this is his therapist based off a previous incident with a partner of his.
Yeah, he's got a
Um,
history.
he has a history, and one thing that's incredible here is that this was actually Gianna Triplehorn's first like real film role. She is credited with being an extra in one other movie before this, but Paul Verhoeven talks about how she was just absolutely incredible in this, and she did have to tone down a bit because acting to an audience live is very different than acting to a camera.
Hmm.
But what I thought, like, and of course, it's just the most Paul Verhoeven thing to say was she was already comfortable with nudity because of some of the performances on stage, and he was like, and that was a big plus. It's like, okay,
I appreciate his
you
honesty,
know,
but yeah, she's like low key, like she's kind of a sleeper performance in this film. Where
oh, she's
she's
yeah,
a very different contrast to her relationship with uh Detective Coran,
hmm
but nonetheless, as we see as the film progresses, I would say it's important in its own way.
yeah. I absolutely think so, man. She is fantastic, and she's the other female like I don't know if it's an antagonist. I don't know what to consider her, but there's two female influences pulling Detective Nick in two different ways. Obviously, he's romantically involved with both of them, as we come to find out, and there's some connections here that are some past between characters here that will get unraveled that are very very interesting. What do you think about the Catherine's other house on the water?
I mean, it's breathtaking.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it just a lot of the scene, the way that they set up some of these scenes, the locations, it just amplifies just how well off she is. I mean, that's I don't know. Like I feel like the director did an incredible job with that.
Now I have another question to ask you. This is very important. Have you ever been as attracted to anybody who smokes in the world like Sharon Stone? She-
I don't think anyone comes close. Again, it's something that I don't think we see all that often. And I get it, but there's something about that in a film like this that just is like the icing on the cake. It
Mhm.
just kind of adds that like accent to each one of these scenes to kind of, reel us in, right? I mean, with these
Yeah.
conversations, what they're discussing or going at it about. But yeah, she
Yeah.
pulls it off. That's for sure.
It also acts as a device for manipulation because in the scenes coming up, she asks Michael Douglas if he has a if he has a lighter. He says no. She asks if he smokes. He says he quit. And then she asks again later on if he wants a cigarette. So it's a little tool that she continues to use, and it gets brought up a couple times in the movie about how he quit, and then he's smoking again. So she challenges him again. It's kind of this running motif that they kind of play back and forth with each other throughout the movie.
Well, it's not only just that, but we know like obviously he has a history of alcoholism, drug abuse, has a prior track record um while on the force. So I mean, we see as we get a little bit further into it, I mean, he starts slipping into these old tendencies
Hmm.
because he's being seduced by Catherine, which I think is just so fascinating. It's basically like, I mean, he's kind of falling for everything that she's laying out there for him.
She's also just breaking him down, like
Hmm.
just completely tearing down every wall he's put up to kind of fix and repair himself, or at least the facade that he's put up. And because you can argue that these problems were never really gone; they were just temporarily put away, and it just took her to come along and challenge him just enough to kind of bring them back to the surface. You know,
Yeah, I mean, And what I thought was interesting, I mean, there was a lot of controversy with her character because we see obviously she surrounds herself. We talked about Roxy and Hazel as well,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So all of which have a very checkered past,
Mhm.
to say the least. And her Catherine's like preferences, I guess, would be the best way to put it. I know that that created some level of controversy because of the way that it was portrayed, which I thought was fascinating. I mean, um, it's a different side to a villain in
Mhm.
a film. So, kind of deep diving into that, I thought that aspect of the film was really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. There's a couple for like my visual nerd friends out there who just love like the visual in like tidbits of filmmaking. The scene when um Gus and Nick pick up Catherine to bring her back to the station is a driving sequence, and they're on like the hilly,
Oh yeah,
mountainside of San Francisco, and this was all shot in an actual moving car. Like this was not rear projection. They specifically shot this in a real car that was actually driving, which is so rare anymore to see because everything now is CG in cars. But I even love them talking about how there's a particular moment where the light hits her a very certain way, and they had to actually like find a stretch of road to
which
time
is
that
crazy.
lighting and figure it out. And it's just like anymore, no studio is giving them the time or the money to
No,
do this. Is do it in post. Do it in post.
it's it just shows their level of commitment to making sure that those scenes turn out the way that they were intended.
Hmm.
Because that sequence is just, again, she's continuing to kind of play the cat mouse game with
Hmm.
them, and we get that all the way up, and you know once from that time all the way up until the interrogation scene.
Well, we're here. I'll have you know. We're both sweaty, as sweaty as Wayne
I
Knight.
was watching this, that's for sure.
The interrogation scene, probably one of the finest examples of class A filmmaking e- ever. I mean, this is like film school study. There are moments in how the camera moves in the scene and the tension and the focus on certain characters and
The lighting.
even the way they lit her versus them. I mean, this sequence is perfect on every level. The writing, the editing, uh, the cinematography. Like this is just absolutely a perfect example of
It's a
my
master class.
movie making. It's
I
so
mean,
good.
it's just as a whole, it's everything that, outside of certain moments, but outside of that, it's everything that I love about erotic thrillers. Because look at the contrast that we get between the police and her, the deliberate lighting choices, the way that they're going back and forth in the conversation. We're just trying to understand her
Hmm.
motives. Is she the killer? We're not, at this point, we're not really sure.
Hmm.
um and it's just, you can kind of cut the tension with a knife
Yeah, you
or an
can,
ice pick.
or an ice pick. You can, yeah, you can break it with an ice pick. This is also just in my mind like classic filmmaking.
Hmm.
If you go back to the 40s and the 50s, like this was how they built tension with the editing and the camera placement and the movement and kind of dollying quickly from one side of a character to another. We see this a lot in some, especially in like noir,
Oh
some
yeah.
noir examples there. Uh, it's just it's incredible filmmaking, and it's patient. Even though it is fast, it moves very quickly. It just builds character, it builds tension, it builds intrigue, and then you have arguably the most infamous moment from this movie of all time, the leg cross,
Mm.
which we have to talk about because they talk about it in the
I had to
commentary
go back a
track.
couple times just to make sure I got all my notes.
I had absolutely, I understand completely. Um, Do you have any notes, particularly on the leg cross moment?
Um, well, the first time I had seen it, I didn't know that that was such a big controversy, and I wasn't expecting it either.
Mhm.
But it's quick, and I
Yeah,
think in hindsight, is it as big of a deal? I mean, I'm sure she felt like it was, but it gets people talking, right? I think
yeah.
that's one of the talking points that you have with this film and the controversy behind it. Uh, but I think it works to this specific moment and the film overall to its advantage, because
Yeah.
it's pushing the envelope.
Well, in discussion of restoration and improvement in how we watch visually movies, how they improve and change over time, originally, like, you couldn't really see much on the VHS, right? It wasn't as clear. Now on, like, I don't even have the 4K. I have the Blu-ray, and this was in plain sight. So I'm sure in the 4K it's even more apparent. Um, how did it look on the 4K? And the scene, not
For
the
research purposes, of course.
Yes.
Uh, no, you can definitely see what's going on there, but to be honest with you, like, I am I wrong? I feel like that there's been other films that were coming out in the 80s and 90s where I felt like you got more, like, nudity. I didn't feel like for as much as this gets talked up, I mean, there's other ones where I feel like I've seen more than just
Well,
this.
yeah, yeah, and I don't think the conversation about it is really stuck on particularly what we see, because then not only was it harder to see, but also your eye doesn't go there right away, and I feel like a
No.
lot of people missed it because until video you couldn't rewind.
Mhm.
So, when you're in a theater, if you miss this, then you have no idea what's going on because it's not a shot, it's a medium shot on her whole body and
Yeah.
she just crosses her legs. And there were people who noticed and it, started controversy. And then there were people who have no idea that it even happened because they didn't see it. They
Oh,
missed it.
Sharon Stone was pissed too because she was under
Yeah.
the impression that that wasn't gonna be used in the film. Believe it was up until the screening happened,
Yep.
and the director left it in there, which it's kind of a ballsy choice,
Yeah.
because I don't know. I mean, he was definitely taking, what would you say, artistic liberties with keeping it in.
Well, there's some interesting, and we're never going to know who's right, who's wrong. They do talk about how at the time of recording this in 2001, that Sharon Stone wasn't as upset about it because this has become kind of one of the key moments in the movie, and this is kind of
Hmm.
the pop culture moment that made this movie what it was. Right, this was one of those big factors, and
For sure.
um, Jan de Bont actually says that Paul Verhoeven wasn't even on the set when they shot this. So this wasn't a Paul Verhoeven, at least not in the moment shot. It might have been storyboarded, like this angle
Hmm.
and this sequence happening, but Jan de Bont was on set. Paul Verhoeven was not, according to them. And then Jan de Bont kind of defends himself and Paul by kind of saying, like, well, if I'm pointing a camera there and there's a light on it, then you're gonna see it. Like he kind of approaches it from a way of like, how are you surprised like you agreed to do the shot and we got the shot and then you're surprised that you can see what's in the shot. So it is a little bit like, and supposedly according to Jan de Bont, Sharon Stone reviewed all of the footage of her scenes. Like she saw this before the screening and had no issues with it supposedly. So
It's fascinating because it's like, there's obviously two sides to the story.
mhm. Yeah, exactly why I don't want to say this is wrong, this is right. This is
Yeah,
just
no,
what we're
no.
told in the track. So
Um, on a unrelated note, can we just point out Jerry Goldsmith, or oh my God,
Goldsmith,
Goldsmith? Sorry, I'm all tripped up over my words over the scene, but Jerry Goldsmith's score for this film,
yeah, it's
and
incredible.
just my understanding, it took them a while to get the score right, exactly what they were looking for. Even Goldsmith said it was one of the most difficult scores he's ever done, which I thought was really interesting. I mean, he's responsible for, we were talking about this earlier, Alien, Poltergeist, First Blood, Psycho 2.
Hmm.
I believe he also did the Omen sequels as well.
I believe so. And you know what? This sound that he creates is very synonymous with me and 90s thrillers because one of my favorite films came a year later, which is The Fugitive. And that was scored
Mm.
by James Newton Howard, which in my opinion has a very similar tone to it. Not to say it was inspired by or anything like that. But when I think of 90s thrillers, this score, this style is what I hear in my head.
I always forget that he also did the first Omen. So it was
Mhm.
that and the sequels.
Yeah. Yep. Oh yeah, he did do the first like the Gregory Peck
The first
Omen,
one, yep.
not the first Omen prequel film from 2022 or whatever
Not
they
to
put
be
out.
confused with it.
Not to be confused. Um did you know that A Detective Nick Rand has sex with Dr. Beth Gardner? I don't know if you know that or not. Um
It was something.
it's
I don't I think okay, go on. Anyways, we'll talk about that in a sec.
well, did you also know that it received some backlash? Which the way Paul Verhoeven says this is kind of interesting to me. And I tried to do some further research and couldn't really find much. But according to him, uh, the gay community was very angry at this scene because it
Mhm.
seemed to be interpreted as like a date rape. The scene between Beth Gardner and Nick,
Mhm.
and it was mostly because of the brutality of it, because there is this running theme throughout the movie of like a sadomasochism, like there's a roughness to all of the sexuality in this movie, and there's this constant switching between her seeming like she is into and wants it that way, and then there's also moments
Mhm.
where she fights back against it, and it's really not clear how to take this.
I'll be honest. I mean, I was kind of I've seen this film multiple times, and this is like a concept that I was always a little like unclear on because
Mhm.
there's times where she's telling Detective Coran to stop or no, but you also can't really tell if she's into it or not. Like
Yeah.
it's really like this blurred line with like specifically their relationship
Yeah,
above all else.
and it's weird because Paul Verhoeven talks about how one of the things that he liked was, and I never thought about this, and this is very graphic. Um, is she saying no because he's going for anal sex? And I guess but it's not. I don't. I don't know. Like
There was a little bit more of that. It wasn't just in this scene, but I believe wasn't there a moment that he was all is it in the club? When they're at the club, they made mention about something about that with Michael Douglas and Sharon Stone.
yeah, there's some weird. There must have been some kind of, Paul Verhoeven's never really clear on it, but he does kind of, maybe that was a conversation that was like, maybe she's saying no because he wants to do something that she typically, will not. It's not the fact
Hmm.
that they're about to have sex, but it's the manner at which they're going to. Um, I never really took it that way, and but also I don't know. I'm kind of unsure because I don't like the scene is so odd.
It pushes the envelope. I
Yeah,
mean, it's yeah, the relationships in any of the with any of the characters in this film, they're all messy, right? We're not
yeah,
really sure the motivations 100%, and this is another one where it's like okay, they obviously have like some sort of a history together,
hmm,
and you know we know Dr. Garner's obviously has she has history with some other characters in this
hmm,
film as well, so um start peeling back the layers.
yeah, yeah. Moving ahead a little bit to the scene when our detective is following Catherine Tremell. I have a note here that says people talk about Tom Cruise doing all of his own stunts, but Michael Douglas did most of his driving in this sequence, and it's insane. That's literally what my note says, word for word. That the driving on the windy roads, the very busy, and there's that one moment where he actually makes contact with another car. It's unbelievable that he did this himself.
And this is why we love the movie.
This is it. This is it.
Hmm.
Well,
He's
uh,
committed, right?
he is. I mean, Tom Cruise is also committed, but like, hey, Michael Douglas.
He might have the
Um,
edge.
there's also a moment when he gets to the house when he's following her, and I want to talk to you about this because Paul mentions how the character of Catherine Tremell was so diabolical that Sharon Stone had no interest right away to doing a sequel. And he imagines that it took her so long to do a sequel because of entering the mindset of this character. My question to you is, why is Basic Instinct 2 a pile of shit?
Because we didn't need a sequel. This it's like I feel like going from Godfather 2 to Godfather 3. It's a film nobody was asking for. I mean, maybe there was some out there that wanted Basic Instinct 2, but I feel like the it's like catching lightning in a bottle for the first
Mhm.
one, and to follow up with this film, what, 14 years later,
He's yeah, what was that? 2007?
6 it came out.
Oh, that was 2006. Yes, so 15 years later. And it's not good. I mean,
No,
the it's like sheer like there how do I word this? Um just not good. Just pile of shit. Just like not interesting. Sharon Stone is good in it. Like she's great, but the movie is just not interesting. You can clearly see the difference between a director like Paul Verhoeven and whoever the hell directed Basic Instinct 2. Not even in the same ballpark.
well, I think it also doesn't help. I mean, you don't have somebody opposite her, the same way you did Michael Douglas. I mean, I feel like that's hard to recapture that
Yeah.
that rapport that they had in this film. So I don't
It's just
know.
also not interesting. Like, okay, she got away and she moved to London, and then the same thing's going to happen again in London. It's not reason enough to make a sequel 15 years
No,
later. It's not.
not at all.
I also have a note here that says Hellraiser on the TV in the background. Hell yeah.
Yeah,
That's, one of my
enhances
one of my
the
favorites.
nightmare aspect of what's going on and what he's going
Mhm.
through.
And it's the moment when Kirsty gets attacked by the Leviathan, and it's Paul Verhoeven talks about how he chose that because it's supposed to be like Nick Cran being trapped in the halls, being chased down by a monster that he can't control, aka Catherine Tremell. Um, do you think the interrogation scene with Karan is hotter than the one with Sharon Stone?
Um, sure.
Oh my god. Genius. I love how the roles are reversed here. I love that we do this scene again.
Yeah,
Almost shot for shot. No Wayne Knight, but very close that we do this again. I just have a
it
note
doesn't carry
here.
it doesn't carry quite the same weight, but I can appreciate it for what it is because obviously the dynamics changing.
I love the you can't smoke in here. What are you gonna arrest me for smoking? Repeat it again, except this time by Michael Douglas. The smoking keeps coming back and back and back.
Yeah.
Keeps coming back. I just love that they did this again and that it's flipped. Now Nick is on the other side of it. And it's
Well,
not as
because
not as intriguing, but
no, it's in it, but I think it's the perfect juxtaposition, right? Anyways,
juxtaposition.
yeah.
Juxtaposition.
Okay, I was right.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. Yeah.
But because he's questioning things, he's
Mhm.
unsure. He's obviously becoming further and further tied up with Catherine, that I feel like in a way, and even us as the audience, we're trying to figure out maybe it's not her. Maybe
Mhm.
there's more to this than we actually realize. So, um, and I think it just reinforces just the uncertainty
Mhm.
of everyone's motives involved in this case.
Well, the big thing here is if you're gonna play a game like this, you have to have a pawn that will become who you need them to become for the game to play out properly, right? There
Hmm.
needs to be this de-evolution of the character that is to a certain extent predictable and gullible and has defenses up that you can now draw down to understand and be able to predict the next move, right? If you have somebody who is more put together, they're unpredictable. Whereas in this case, Nick Cran is very predictable. So he plays perfectly into her trap. But what we're beginning to see here is this continued questioning of his ability to perform the task as a police officer, of a detective. There's suspicion on him because of his relationship that's forming with Catherine Tremell, as well as questioning of his past. And this moment, we kind of see a different side of him. This is a side with a little bit more confidence and a little
Hmm.
bit more of understanding that he's in a game, but not smart enough to understand that him attempting to regain control and becoming this person is playing into exactly what she needs him to be doing.
Yeah, she's setting everything up. I mean, she's very deliberate with the way that she's setting, certain players into the position that she needs them to, or
Hmm.
things to line up in a certain order. But it's very deliberate. I mean, as we see as the film goes on.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, Hence, like this sequence here, where Nick his leave goes into effect. He is officially off the force temporarily. And he goes to his apartment, and Catherine Tremell is there, and she says, "Oh, I heard what happened. I have people who told me." And you have this sort of like kind of what seems like blossoming friendship and relationship, and kind of like some lines begin to get blurred and crossed.
Hmm.
And Paul talks about specifically in this moment in the apartment, this continued regain of control over Catherine, or the illusion of control,
Well,
as
and we
he begins kind of shooting back at her more than he has before.
see this theme throughout the entire film, because in a way she is exerting the control, um all the way up from the very beginning, and when she's being interrogated, and everything that follows suit afterwards. But even I have a note in here, like when they go to the club,
Hmm.
and I feel like Detective Karan is the entire film he's constantly fighting for the control,
Hmm.
with her or with others. And it's just so fascinating because it just continues to play back and forth, kind of push and pull with how far things can go.
Yeah, and it does, and it's an interesting dynamic because we as the audience are given an illusion of a control shift here. Okay, yeah,
Hmm.
wow. So, we started the movie with Catherine leading Nick and Gus out of the house on the way to the interrogation, showing she's in control, she's in command. We have the interrogation scene. Now things have kind of changed because we're seeing also a softer side of Catherine here. She's
Hmm.
putting on the softer appearance where she shows up. She's sorry, sympathetic to him going on leave for his job. They're together in the apartment. It seems like there's something blossoming, and he kind of has the ability to step up and kind of reclaim some of that control again. So it's an interesting dynamic that really begins to play out in the most interesting way for the rest of the movie from this point on.
One thing that I thought was interesting was in the club scene. So this was filmed at Soundstage 6 at Warner Brothers Studio on their lot in Burbank,
Hmm.
but it was actually influenced, I believe, by Limelight in New York City, which
Yeah.
was really big during the rave scene around that time. which
Yeah.
that scene, there's something about it, and just eh, the dynamic that the two have, and you're trying to piece things together, and it's just the backdrop with him being in the club. It's already chaotic as is, and we're us as the audience, we're still trying to figure out like what exactly is going on, but love it. There's
Yeah.
something about that aesthetic that just works on so many levels for this film.
It's also just an incredibly sexy sequence. Her dancing
Oh, it
with
is.
Roxy. Michael Douglas's sweater is very
Mhm.
nice. It's very, very, very
That
nice.
that's what I was gonna bring up, but
Yeah. um, and the scene concludes with Catherine and Nick sleeping together. Right. It
mhm.
feels like, oh, fine. There's a couple emotions going into this because it's like we knew this was going to happen eventually, but we're also like, last time we think we saw her having sex with somebody, she stabbed him 37 times with an ice pick. So, but you can't, they're not going to kill off Michael Douglas. We're barely going into the third act.
Mhm.
Um, this scene between them took 3 days
Builds
to
attention
film.
though.
It does. It does. The scene took 3 days to film. It was 100%. Every single movement from both of those was written and scripted and choreographed. And a lot of the scene was actually removed from the theatrical cut, the American theatrical cut, for being just too explicit. And it's all back here in its glory in the uncut edition.
How it should be.
How it should be. We should not be censoring these moments. But apparently, Michael Douglas gets really into the sex scenes as far as his performance. Paul Verhoeven said. So
Can you blame him? Sharon Stone.
3 days though. Can you imagine doing this for three? Imagine they work 8 hour days. 3 days. You it took.
8 hours spending time with Sharon Stone.
It's exhausting.
Not for me. Sign me
Yeah.
up, man. Sign me up.
Sounds exhausting, man. I always like this bit where Paul Verhoeven talks about how they actually had to reshoot the moment when Nick wakes up after this night with Catherine, because they had to put appliances on his back for the scratches that
Oh
she
yeah.
leaves on him, which we see during the scene. And apparently, the first the first time they shot it, it looked like he was attacked by a vampire. It was so excessive. It was like these massive rips on his back, and they were like, "We gotta tone that down." So they had to go back and shoot it again. Yeah,
It looked painful, but
yeah, painful.
whatever.
3 days with Sharon Stone.
That's not painful.
um, and then I have a note here that just says they don't make car chases like they used to.
There's a lot about this film that I just it just puts into perspective just where we're at, just with cinema in general. Um, but man, I know you and I have talked about this before. It's just it makes me long for more of these films, at least at this caliber of film, because I feel like that they've tried to do that in recent years, and I just don't feel like it's had that same level of success.
Mhm.
Um, this Fatal Attraction, some of the other films we were talking about, they're like in a tier all on its own.
Yeah, and there's also things about this movie that are kind of gone forever. One of those being like this is shot in San Francisco. Like you're
Hmm.
seeing real San Francisco locations during the car chases. It feels palpable, it feels real, it feels on location, doesn't feel like something that somebody just made up and finished with visual effects. And that's like this car chase with what we learn to be Roxy feels so incredibly real because it begins with um him getting hit by the car, and she's
Hmm.
driving the car that Catherine Tremell drives the whole time. He gets hit by the car that was done by a stunt double. We see it, we feel it, the whole impact. It sells really well. And
Well, we're
then you get
questioning what's exactly going on too.
exactly, yeah. And then the car chase goes and it's tense. And it feels like this is the same feeling that I got when I watch Bullet or To Live and Die in LA, where
Hmm.
like the cars are moving. Like they're moving fast. They're
It's
they're
high
they're
stakes.
taking, yeah, they're high stakes. It's tense, and it concludes with this fucking hell of a crash scene as the
Looks
car
brutal.
trumbles over the side of like what looks like a bridge or an overpass into a dig site, which is now a skyscraper, by the way. This was the basement they had dug out for that actual construction site.
Can't have anything nice.
It looks real, man. And dude, it's the same thing that like when you watch a couple weeks ago, I watched Duel, Spielberg. You're never gonna match the feeling of when the 18-wheeler goes over the side of the cliff and rolls down the cliff and explodes. It's palpable. It feels real. It looks real and gnarly, and that's what this car crash looks like. This is a brutal car crash, man. The car smashes into the front and flips over. It's violent. You know, you get the feeling like, God, I hope nobody was in that car like during the shooting of this, because that looks
Oh,
like somebody
I thought you were talking
actually
about in the movie. I'm
died.
like, Chris, we both watched the movie. We know what happens.
Roxy. R.I.P. Roxy.
Yeah, pour one out for her.
R.I.P. Pour one out. I have a note here that basically just talks about how this stretch of the commentary heading into the last act is really just heavy on character motives and some brief insights into like alternate lines of dialogue. And you know, for those of us like you and I have seen this movie
Hmm.
over and over again, it's interesting, though we know kind of where it's heading. I think this is a commentary, especially in this moment, that's better for people who've only seen it a couple times.
Can I add one thing in?
Yeah, please.
So, in a character we haven't really talked much about, Lieutenant Nilsson.
Hmm.
So we know that there's been information that has been, or somehow information about Detective Coran has been put out there. I thought that his relationship, whether it was with Detective Coran or if it was with Dr. Garner and what exactly was going on there and what capacity, thought that side of it was really interesting because you really have to pay attention exactly what was going on and what was the dynamic, between like him and what we're trying to basically figure out, like where things currently stand.
Well, there's a lot of unfolding information that, you know, for the sake of like a commentary conversation, we didn't really get on, but like the learning that Dr. Beth Gardner actually attended college and was a college friend of Catherine Tremell, but was also a lover
Hmm.
of Catherine Tremell when they were young. We have the selling of Nick's file,
Yep,
which,
that's what I
you
was
know,
referring to.
yeah, which explodes. We have you know, the continued uncovering of Catherine's new book, which Nick is the focus of for the main character. And we learn that essentially, you know, as soon as the book is done, then she's done with him. She's like, I got my book, I'm done, I don't need you anymore.
But isn't this a reflection of like how she is overall? She uses people, right? Like,
Yeah, I
I,
mean, what better way to write a character than to watch it unfold in real life, you know? And
hmm
actually it's incredibly genius. It's manipulative and it's evil and it's disgusting, but like it's probably a hell of a book. You know what I mean? Like, let's be real, we would read that book.
yeah. Oh yeah.
We would read that. So there's so many different things happening here, and I brought up this moment in particular when he shows up to her house and he sees that the book is being finalized and printed. There's this interesting thing that Paul Verhoeven brings up where this confrontation where she tells him like, I don't need you anymore, my book is done, we're done, and it turns into an argument. They shot this in two different takes. They did a take where Michael Douglas would get angry and Catherine would respond softer, and then another where that dynamic flipped.
I thought
And
this was interesting that when he pointed this out.
yeah, and the end result was a combination of both of the takes. And I had just finished a review for the commentary track of American Psycho that's going to be in next month's Physical Media Advocate magazine. And I love hearing Mary Herron talk about how for the sequences between Willem Dafoe, the detective, and um, Patrick Bateman, they had William Dafoe play the role in three different ways. You know, one that he was not suspicious at all, one where he was a little bit suspicious, and one where he was like pretty confident. And they
Hmm.
shot them all three and then used all three takes in the sequence. That way, you never truly got a full understanding of
Oh, I didn't know
exactly
that.
how he felt, which is why he kind of like there's this bouncing around of exactly like, oh, does he know? Does he not? Oh, he doesn't. Oh, he does. Same trick pulled here, except this was 9 years before American Psycho, and it's really genius. Like that's incredible, you know, filmmaking and character direction and editing on full display in this scene because it works wonderfully
I learned something new.
every day, man.
Thanks, Chris.
Every day, yeah, dude. You're very welcome. You're welcome. Um, so the culmination of everything, right? Go ahead, please.
Well, I'll let you explain. I have a question. Once we get past this point that I wanted to bring up.
Well, I just had one more actual note, and it's that when the movie was over after Michael Douglas saw the film at the premiere, everything was finished.
Hmm.
Um, eh, there's there's a moment when Detective Nick pulls up to his apartment, and this is after the death of Gus. This is the whole sequence that happens in the hotel, where Gus is killed, and he just shot Beth because he thinks she's going to pull a gun out of her pocket.
Mm.
And all the cards have been drawn now, right? And everything that Catherine Tremell has been putting in place is now unfolded and worked. There's a moment when Nick goes home and he kind of pulls up outside and kind of quickly gets out of his car and goes into, you know, begins going into the house to go towards the end of to lead us into the end of the movie. And Michael Douglas mentioned that when they saw the premiere, he was like, "Man, I should have taken a moment and just stayed in the car and kind of processed everything that just happened." He's like, "But no, I quickly got out of the car as directed and went in." And I just thought that was interesting. And I was wondering if that would kind of change the emotional impact of the end of the movie for you if he had done that.
Um, I think I'm like, I mean, hearing that in hindsight, obviously it makes you kind of pause and wonder if it would add anything to it. But to be honest, I mean, I'm happy with how it was played out.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, the so what I was going to bring up with you was how involved did you feel like Dr. Garner was? If we're looking at this as like a whole, what like how involved did you truly feel like she was throughout the film?
I feel like she is sort of the like she almost feels like collateral damage,
Hmm.
you know? And it's unfortunate that sometimes you become a player in a game you've never intended to be in. But unfortunately, she gets more involved, especially when she, you know, kind of stands up for him and gives him helps him with his alibi. When the question on if he killed detective, what was his name again? It was um when he killed or Lieutenant Nielsen, you know, when he's like, "Oh, I was home," you know, and they're like, "Are you drinking again?" And she steps up and says, "Yeah, hey, I did see him. It was, you know, 10
Yeah, she
o'clock.
like
He was
backs him up.
sober." Yeah, backs him up. Um, you know, she got herself more involved and deeper involved. And I do just feel like she had to it had to end this way for the game to go, even though I genuinely don't think she had any nefarious like role to play in it all. I
Yeah,
think
because I mean, she's going to grab his keys.
yeah, she's gonna grab his keys. Nick is the one who reacts so sudden because of his suspicions,
Yeah,
and
the
he makes the
paranoia.
mistake of shooting her dead. And what's crazy is she becomes the unfortunate victim, but then she also becomes the blame for everything.
Hmm.
She takes. I mean, she's dead, so she can't respond to it. She's not going to go to prison, but like she becomes the fall guy for everything. What do you think? Do you think she?
No, I think you're right. I think she was an unfortunate victim. She was too close to the fire with this.
Yeah.
The level of involvement that she had with Lieutenant Nielsen. I mean, it's like you keep playing with fire, you know, you're going to get burned. I mean, a lot of these players outside of our two main characters, it didn't end well for anybody, for that
Yeah.
matter. The one character that I still, after watching this film multiple times, I was trying to like pinpoint, because we obviously know Roxy and her relationship with Catherine, but the one that I thought I was always fascinated by was Hazel,
Hmm.
because there seems to be like some weird type of like, I don't even know if I would consider it sexual tension, but a different like rapport with
Hmm.
Catherine
Hmm.
compared to like how she is with Roxy. And it's almost like I felt like that was, at least like the looks that she's giving, or her demeanor, it felt like she was kind of controlling of Catherine in a way. I don't know if you picked up on that. I thought it was very strange, because every time I watch it, I'm always like left kind of questioning. I know she's got a checkered past, right? But
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
definitely
She
makes
has a
you wonder.
homicide on her report.
Hmm.
Um.
And then we know with like Roxy, she had who is it that she had killed?
Oh.
Um, her
Um.
younger brothers.
Yeah. Both of her younger brothers. Yeah. Yeah. Who were kids? I mean, like little kids.
And then you have the dynamic between um Dr. Garner and Catherine, with
Hmm.
like the jealousy aspect, and you know, we're like unclear to like what extent that went. I don't know. This movie is just, it's fascinating because there's so much to unpack. It's a very complex film.
It is. Yeah. It is. I don't know. I mean, I like to think that like maybe I mean I like to kind of think that Catherine Tremell, like this was just all her. You know, she was all in control, and every single thing she did was for misdirection. And it's like, you know, the scene when Nick follows her and we're introduced to Hazel, and he goes up to the
Hmm.
mailbox to get the name and the address, that way he can look up the history. It's almost like she got her involved just to kind of give some misdirect, or just to kind of, you
And
know, push
insulate
them.
her.
Yeah, yeah, but it's also kind of the thing of like a lot of people who write books have ghost authors, and maybe there's some influence that's never explored, or maybe there's some, you know, maybe there is some kind of help going on. But she's surrounded by people that are just as,
Shady.
yeah, yeah. I don't want to say like just as evil as her, because we don't really know too much of the intention behind, unfortunate, the tragic past of these two characters, and what happened to cause whatever happened. But it definitely, you know, they say you become who you're surrounded by, and she's surrounded by some people that aren't so great, you know.
No, not at all.
So it's there's a lot to unpack here, man. And I mean, there's probably a million other podcasts out there that dive into these things probably way more in depth than we will, but that's not what our show is. You know, we wanted to learn what we learned from the commentary, and this is this is what is most fascinating to me about film, is that this film is now what, 30, how old am I? This came out a year after I was what, 36 years old, 35 years old, and we're still talking about it in this way, and we still have questions, and we're still curious. There are things that are not answered or not fully explored.
It's like less is more. And
Yeah.
that this is a big problem, and you were talking about this earlier, how they don't make films like this anymore. But what I love about it is that it doesn't need to over explain.
Mm-mm.
I don't need more than they provide me. I like to not know, to be honest. Like a lot of this stuff, leave it open ended, because it gives us conversation pieces like we're discussing here on a podcast episode. That's what makes it so
Yeah,
impactful.
I don't need everything buttoned up. You can leave
No.
things. It doesn't, like, for some reason it feels like screenwriters nowadays, or I don't even know if it's the fault of screenwriters or if it's producers that are kind of like undermining the intelligence of an audience. But not everything has to have an answer for us to
No,
understand what role it plays in the story of the film. All we need to know is that Hazel is suspicious in some way because of her past. There's a homicide on her record. I don't need that more explored to understand where she kind of fits in the story and kind of like where the misdirect is. Like it works just fine how it is.
I agree.
You know, and
And for the final scene that we get, is this not the perfect way to end this film?
oh,
Because
it's so good.
the tension is off the charts by this point.
Yeah.
And there's moments where you think that that's where it's going to go. It doesn't go there, and you think, okay, maybe we can let our guards down as an audience as a whole, right?
Hmm.
And it even the director makes mention of this with like the subtle the fading out
Yeah.
shot that they do, and then it brings it back, and there's a moment where we see Catherine, they're obviously her and Detective Coran are both in bed together. And there's a moment where she starts reaching over. And he's sitting there in bed. And he's sitting, basically with his, head on the pillow, just kind of like in more of like somewhat of an upright position. And she's reaching over. And then he goes and turns away from her, leaving his back exposed. And I remember the first time watching it, I'm thinking to myself, like, oh, this is it.
Hmm.
Like, this is it.
Yeah.
And this is just going to reaffirm like kind of what we thought all along.
Hmm.
And then boom, misdirect. And they just engage in this passionate like moment of them kissing. And then we get that iconic scene at the very end.
Yeah.
And we see what's underneath the bed. 10 out of 10.
It's I mean, this is like just pure like grade S filmmaking. Like you have the tension of her reaching. We think, oh my god, it's gonna happen, and then it doesn't. And then you relax. And then the moment the camera continues going and you see that the ice pick is actually on the floor, the fact that it's even there, it just heightens it even more. And then boom, the movie's over.
And what's incredible about it is like, okay, so you obviously the that closing sequence is so impactful, but
Hmm.
we know that Catherine has now at this point she's outsmarted the police. Uh Nick is basically controllable by her. We know that. And we know like when they're sitting there laying in bed together, they're talking about like, the future, right?
Hmm.
Long-term plans together. But us as the audience knows that at least how I interpret it, that's not going to be the case.
Yeah.
He's never going to see it. And
No.
it's just reinforced once she goes and reaches over, and then eventually we end up seeing that the ice pick was underneath the bed the whole time. It's
Mhm.
incredible. Fucking incredible.
Yeah. This is the absolute perfect ending for this movie, man. Absolutely a perfect ending. I couldn't think of a better way to close it. And if you see Basic Instinct 2, we find out I don't remember. I didn't watch it all the way.
There is in my mind there's no sequel.
Yeah.
This is just this is a perfect film.
Yeah, yeah. This was such a great choice to cover our first erotic thriller. I'm going to give you the credit on this one because this was your call. You deserve it. Here's your
You
crown.
you, you can just give me 8 hours with Sharon Stone
Oh my god.
instead.
Oh my god. Um
For research, obviously, for the podcast.
yeah, that's what you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
Research for Beyond the Blood. Great move.
We're
Um
researching Basic Instinct 2 together.
as always, go listen to the audio commentary track. There's a ton more in this track than what we covered here. We just kind of picked what we felt like were the best for conversation purposes, or we felt were the most interesting. We are not the penultimate guide to the commentaries. Please go back and give it a listen yourself. I listened to this on the studio Blu-ray of the uncut edition. You have the studio 4K, I think you said, right?
Hmm. Yep, from Lionsgate Limited.
And even if you have the DVD, it's still there. There is another audio commentary with a, I believe, a critic and a feminist. Um,
And there was an older one too. I don't know if yours had the release from the director. It was
yes, there's another one
yeah,
with Paul Verhoeven. Yeah,
just by
just him
himself
alone.
though. Mhm.
Yeah, just him alone. Um, yeah, so please go back and give this a listen. Audio commentaries are an incredible resource if you love these movies, and I think in this case, this is one that would only kind of. This makes me like I can't wait to go watch this again, knowing all of this and watching it just in its original form without the commentary track, picking up on this little stuff again, man. That's why I just
You
fucking
you
love I
have
love this shit.
you have no idea how happy this made me for us
Yeah.
to finally be able to cover this film. Like you guys, listen, I know you and I talk about it at nauseum, but
Mhm.
this is truly a subgenre that you've got giallo films, you got slashers, but above all else, you have erotic thrillers. That
Yep.
is a subgenre I am beyond passionate about. So I'm very excited to start covering these.
And we couldn't predict because we didn't plan what our 50th episode was going to be. But Basic Instinct, episode number 50 of Beyond the Blood, I think it's very fitting. I think this was the perfect 50th episode.
Culmination,
It's all been leading to this moment, and then
kind of like Catherine's plans.
this has all been the manipulation and planning of Catherine Tremell has led to the 50th episode of Beyond the Blood and the first video episode. It's all just it's coming together, man. There's
It
ice
is
picks and there's beds and
nudity.
there's nudity and man, I've had to go just get off this and go watch that movie again. You know.
I just see that your phone's on do not disturb. I'm like, okay, well,
Yeah.
I'll talk to you tomorrow then.
You're true. Yeah, yeah. I'll talk to you later. Yeah, let's round this out, man. Basic Instinct now available in 4K, available in Blu-ray, available on DVD. Go listen
Buy
to
it in
the
any format. Buy it in any
just
format. It doesn't
own
matter.
just own it, man.
It's
Just
a must
own
have.
own this movie. Um, I think we have some big plans coming up on the show. Nothing that's like I really want to kind of dish out yet because we still need to talk about some
No, we
upcoming
got some exciting
episodes. But
stuff.
yeah, we always have something exciting coming. Very stoked to finally have the video version of this out. So if you're watching this over on YouTube or on the video portion of Spotify, thank you so much. Um, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's listened. The show is growing so rapidly and so fast. It kind of blows my mind. And we want to make sure that we kind of continue our place in the algorithm. So if you're listening to this on Apple Music or Spotify, please do us a favor and just drop a rating. Takes 2 seconds. You don't even have to leave a review. Just give a rating and honest. I'm not asking for 5 stars, but Catherine Tremell is still out there. Remember, and I think she is a big fan of the show. And if you don't put 5 or 4 stars, she might be in your bedroom with an ice pick. Might be a good thing.
I'm not leaving a review then if that's the case.
As always, before we say our goodbyes, be sure to go explore our partner podcast. We have a link down below in the description of all of our shows for Someone's Favorite Productions. They are the incredible podcast network that makes all of this a reality for us. Some absolutely incredible shows on there. Wonderful people just doing their part to keep film conversation and physical media alive. Um, I'm just going to plug real quick issue number 31 of Physical Media Advocate just hit shelves if you're around a physical retailer, but on Amazon. This is a magazine dedicated to physical media and film. It's also the first issue with my monthly commentary column in there, where I'll be reviewing.
Proud of you, man. That's
Thank you,
crazy.
man. Thank you. Where I'll be reviewing some audio commentary tracks in there. It's very exciting. It's the first time I've ever had anything put in print. So I guess now I can add published writer to my bio on Instagram, right?
Another milestone.
Another, yeah.
All culminating. It's what Catherine wanted.
So please go support that. Not out of like get it because I'm in it, but just support that there's still a physical publication with a focus on physical media and
100%.
just a ton of other great articles written by incredible people in there that are worth your time and reading and belong on your shelf. So
Real quickly, can we also add, if anyone's listening, be sure to follow us on social media at Beyond the Blood Pod.
Beyond the Blood Pod. What's your personal social media?
Mine, After Hours
Yeah.
Video.
And I'm Bearded Film Guy.
But I want people to go check it out. Tag us if you happen to be checking out Basic Instinct or any other film that we've
Yeah.
covered, love to connect with you guys. Love interacting with you guys on there. And yeah, be sure to give this one and any of our past episodes a listen.
Just don't go back to like the first season. That was rough. No, I'm just kidding. Go back to it.
It
It was
wasn't
good.
that
We were
bad.
we were learning.
Anyway,
We were learning. I
get
actually
hard on
think
yourself, man.
I was talking to somebody the other day and they were like, "Where should I start?" And I was like, "Maybe start at episode 1." I'm like, "Then fast forward a little bit because I think the growth is pretty great, and I think that's actually a fun thing to kind of go back and track again."
It happened quickly though, because even remember us starting
Mhm.
consistently, and even then it was like fine tuning everything from that point forward. But I'm very proud with the progress we've made, and hope
Yeah.
everyone else is enjoying this as much as we've been enjoying it.
Continuous evolution,
Hmm.
right? Continuous.
Always.
Thank you for tuning in. This is Beyond the Blood. We'll see you guys on the next one.